Okay, great turnout. So, I'm Gary Beverly. I'm chair of the local Sierra Club, and I've been delegated as spokesperson for the Yavapai Climate Change Coalition. That coalition is composed of, this is a big list, so I have to read it, Sierra Club, Veterans for Peace, Grandmothers for Peace, the No KXL Pipeline Coalition, the Granite Peaks Unitarian Universalist Congregation, the Yavapai County Democratic Party, the League of Women Voters of Prescott, Slow Food Prescott, the Prescott College Sustainability Club, and the Quad Cities Interfaith Council. Huge! So this rally will last just maybe an hour. We need photos of the event, so we have got some cameras set up, but if you have photos, please shoot them to me so we can get them posted up at the World Rally Coordination site. So it's kind of chilly today. It's actually 46 degrees. And Fahrenheit. And so some people think it's a little ironic to have a climate change rally when it's this cold, but I want to point out that the 100-year average temperature for this day and this time is 41, so it's actually warmer than usual.
Yay! Boo!
So we're here today because we love the Arizona lifestyle. And we like the climate here and the remarkable landscape and wildlife that we live amongst. And so for this Thanksgiving weekend, I think it's really important that we recognize that we're lucky to live here, and it's important for us to accept some responsibility for maintaining this wonderful place, our home, Arizona. Specifically, we are here today to support COP21. Which is the Paris Peace Conference on Climate Change that begins tomorrow, November 30 in Paris, France. By supporting, we're here to support that conference. We're here to learn what we as citizens can do locally to combat climate change. And we're here to urge stronger government action on combating climate change.
Much needed.
So now, think about this. We are one of 2,300 rallies worldwide today. There are over 42 million citizens that have signed up to support these climate rallies and actions. So this is a worldwide movement demanding stronger action to a worldwide problem. This morning, over 60,000 people marched in Melbourne, Australia, 50,000 in London, 20,000 in Rome, 20,000 in Madrid. In 175 countries today, 600,000 people are marching, and you are part of that, and I want you to feel connected. This is a worldwide problem, and this is the beginning of worldwide action. Now, globally, progress in addressing climate change has been very slow and frustrating for 2 decades. But finally, this year in 2015, at COP21, we have a chance to make a difference. The internationally agreed upon goal for climate change is to limit warming to 2 degrees C by 2100. If we do nothing, warming could exceed 4 degrees C by 2100. To date, 180 nations have pledged to reduce greenhouse gas emissions sufficient to reduce global warming to 2.7 degrees C. So that's huge progress, but it's not enough, and we need to do better. The United States pledged to reduce greenhouse gas emissions 26% by 2025. This is a bare minimum effort, and it's known as the Clean Power Plan. It's rated as the 15th best plan in the world. Not good enough. America should have the best plan. We can and should do better. In the Clean Power Plan, the EPA requires each state to devise its own method to reach a goal. Arizona's goal is to cut 33%. And that's actually a very modest cut given the enormous untapped solar power production potential in this state. Yet the Arizona Attorney General and the Arizona Corporation Commission are suing the EPA to block this plan. 26 states nationwide are trying to block the Clean Power Plan, and our state is one of them. And they do this despite polls that show some interesting numbers here. 64% of Arizona citizens believe climate change is happening. That's up from a few years ago. 74% of Arizona citizens believe that CO2 should be regulated as a pollutant. 64% support strict CO2 limits on power plants. The people of Arizona are behind this power plan, but our elected officials are not. So that's where you all come in. We need to let Governor Ducey, the Corporation Commission, and the Attorney General know that we want them to implement the Clean Power Plan as a minimum action, and then to do better than that. Plus, we need to demand that they halt that litigation. The litigation is doomed to fail. The only thing it's guaranteed to do is to waste your taxpayer money. So this is just ridiculous, and you need to raise your voice up to make this Clean Power Plan happen. So we have a petition for you to sign, and there's people circulating through the crowd, and there's petitions at the tables back on the side. Petition to Governor Ducey asking him to implement the Clean Power Plan, and we'll have more on that later. Now, another dimension to this is that Arizona lawsuit is especially preposterous because climate scientists project that Arizona will be the most affected, the hottest and driest part of North America, and it will cause severe changes to the landscape we love. Climate change will substantially affect us here. It will affect our children's future all throughout the Southwest. We are in ground zero bullseye target for the maximum warming from climate change right here. To learn more about that, I'd like you to hear Tony Krisik speak. Tony is a distinguished Ph.D. ecologist and statistician that has graduate training in chemistry, physics, and math. So, I mean, Tony here is the real deal. This is a scientist. He's done original published science research for 50 years, and he has keenly kept track of climate change. So please welcome Dr. Tony Krisik.
Yeah, the real deal.
Thanks. I put together a few notes last night from my PowerPoint presentation, so they're kind of scattered, but they're actually some pretty strong bullets. Can you hear?
Yep. Yeah, sort of. You want to get right on the mic, yeah.
Okay. There we go. In the 21st century, from the perspective of science at least, talking about climate change, to me is akin of talking about that the Earth is round and it's going around the sun. Scientists know far more about climate change than they know about gravity. Is there climate change? By definition, it is, because the definition of climate change is over a 30-year period of the various metrics of climate, such as precipitation, humidity, temperature, and so forth. If they change, then by definition, it's climate change, and we have had that. So there definitely is climate change. Hasn't climates always changed on Earth? Of course. But typically over thousands to tens of millions of years, climates have changed. Right now, climate is changing by a big study out of Stanford 10 times faster than it ever did over the last 65 million years when the asteroid hit the Earth. All of this controversy could have been eliminated rather easily, because the first IPCC report, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, came out in 1990. And the scientists made predictions about what would happen in 20 years. The climate change deniers wet their pants and said that the scientists are extreme, environmentalists and just trying to scare everybody. This stuff is all crap. That's not going to happen in 20 years. Well, guess what? It's 20 years later, as far as I know, since 1990. And what did happen? Who was right? This was never reported on the news. Was it the scientists or the climate change deniers? They were both wrong. Because scientists are very conservative in making technical predictions. The climate change has been much worse. And most of the extremes came from excessive sea level rise and excessive melting of the polar ice caps. As far as CO2 emissions and temperature, they were pretty much on. Now the latest report came out, the fifth one, late in 2013, early 2014, and they have said, again conservatively, that the last 30 years have been the warmest in at least 1,400 years. Basically, three things determine the climate: the output of the sun, the location of the continents on the planet, and these haven't changed much in the last couple million years. And the third thing is greenhouse gases, and mostly CO2. We do have a natural greenhouse effect. Let's say there was no CO2 in the atmosphere at all, no water vapor. The mean annual temperature of the Earth would be below zero, minus 0.4 degrees Fahrenheit.
Boo!
Now when you add 28 thousandths percent, again 28 thousandths percent CO2 and 0.25% water vapor, that average temperature of the Earth goes from minus 0.4 to 57 degrees. So that's how much 280 parts per million adds, along with its water component. It adds that much, 57.4 degrees. How much CO2 do we have right now? I checked
400 plus.
Saturday, the average for the globe was 400.63. And this is from Mauna Loa in Hawaii on the mountaintop. CO2 concentration has been tracked there since 1958 when it was 315. This is the famous Keeling curve. When's the last time our CO2 was 400 parts per million? It was 3 million years ago when we were halfway up the evolutionary ladder to become Homo sapiens. It's also very important to remember that over the last 12,000 years, the climate was relatively stable when all our civilization and agriculture was developing. Actually, climate change, global warming is kind of the same terminology, but a much better definition is energy imbalance. The greenhouse gases are trapped on Earth because of CO2 and other heat's trapped, and it doesn't radiate back out to space. Well, 90% of our trapped heat is trapped by the oceans, and about a third of all CO2 ends up in the oceans. So 90% of the heat, when it's trapped in the oceans become warmer. What happens? More water is evaporated. What happens when the atmosphere is warmer? There's more water in the atmosphere. Now, because of this, our temperature's only gone up 1 degree centigrade since the 1880s. That doesn't seem like much, 1 degree centigrade change in temperature. But that's caused the water vapor to be 7% higher on average. Okay, so what does this mean? When this excess water vapor in the vapor state falls as rain, every kilogram of water vapor's got to give off 540 kilocalories of energy. So this extra temperature change, 1 degree centigrade, has produced 7% more water vapor. How much energy is that? I calculated that this morning. It's 100,000 times the energy of all nuclear weapons tested on the planet. That's how much 1 degree change on Earth really means. Now, with all this free energy, why aren't we taking advantage of it? In 2015, the subsidies to the global fossil fuel industry are going to total of $5.13 trillion from taxpayers. This is from the International Monetary Fund, hardly a liberal organization. How long does it take the CO2 to disappear? The mean residence time of CO2 molecule is 30,000 years. Now that's kind of me cherry picking data, because actually, in reality, about 3/4 of CO2 gets eliminated within a couple hundred years. But because this is on a tailed curve, the last 7% takes at least 100,000 years. But we're in a great place here to see how water vapor can be eliminated. How does CO2 finally get lowered from the atmosphere? That's been going on for many, many millions of years. The way CO2 gets out of the atmosphere is by the weathering of silica-rich rocks such as granites. So when you're watching Granite Mountain weather down into soil, or granite dells, that's how long it's going to take for the CO2 to go down. There's been a lot of articles published on how climate change is going to affect the Southwest in terms of drought. Anybody that's interested in seeing these, I have 4 of them, and we can discuss it afterwards. Or if you want any additional information, I can email you these. The USGS in 2004 said that, sure, the Colorado River has fluctuated, but at least fairly since 1886, the flow has drastically decreased up until 2004. The U.S. National Academy of Scientists came out with a report and said that new innovative technologies and any kind of water conservation strategies in the Southwest will not meet future water demands based on population growth and climate change. So forget about technology, forget about water conservation. It's not enough as long as population grows and you have climate change. 13 scientists in the publication of the American Association for the Advancement of Science following conclusions. The recent multi-year drought that we've had, and the Dust Bowl, and the 1950s drought, which was very severe in the Southwest, is going to become the new climatology of the American Southwest within a few years to decades. But one of the most impressive papers came out this year recently, in that 17 different climate models tracked the changing conditions from the year 1000 to 2100, and the drier conditions that are going to occur in the second half of the 21st century are going to be far more extreme than anything that's happened in the 20th century, anything that's happened in the paleoclimate data. And that includes what we used to call the medieval warming period, between 1100 and 1300, when the Anasazi got wiped out because of drought. Well, that really wasn't a warming period. Warming only occurred in Europe. Everything else was kind of cold. So it's now called the medieval climate anomaly. And that's actually a blip on the map compared to what's going to happen by 2100. It's already started in 2000. Anybody wants to see that data? I have it with me to look at. It's pretty impressive. That you see this little dip in 1100, 1300. All of a sudden now the models show that by the end of this century, it's going to be lights out as far as drought goes in the Southwest and also in the Great Plains. So anybody want to see any more data, just talk to me afterwards.
Thank you, Tony.
Thanks, Tony. Thank you.
Thanks, Tony. The implications of a drying climate plus increasing temperatures could be devastating for the forests around here. The ponderosa pines will be more subjected to pine bark beetle. The pinyon juniper forests are in these long-term scenarios are doomed. This is why I was saying that there will be huge changes to the landscape that we know and love. Now, so some climate change is in the pipeline, and we're not going to be able to change that. But if we act strongly now, we can mitigate this. We can prevent it from getting worse. So the way we do that is to start with individual action. And I'd like to introduce Reverend Karla Brockie, who is the minister for the Granite Peaks Unitarian Universalist congregation in Prescott. And Karla will address kind of the moral basis for personal action. Karla, thank
you. Good afternoon. Greetings. We're going to do morality in 5 minutes. Let us pause together for a little reflection. Climate change is not so much a political issue as a spiritual and ethical one, with implications for every person on the planet. No matter what your religious or non-religious perspective, humans are ethical beings. Jewish, Christian, Muslim, Buddhist, Hindu, Native American, pagan, humanist, scientist. From very young, we understand that to fulfill our being, we need to do the right thing. Love your neighbor, share, be kind, care for the earth, respect others. If we cultivate reverence for others and for that which is greater than ourselves, and cultivate mindfulness of our own hearts, the ethical path unfolds before us. Every speck of existence is connected to every other thing in existence. Right relationship is at the center of doing the right thing. The practice does require cultivation, however. Our long history of colonialism, militarism, and materialism has brought the world to an economy and culture based on exploitation and immediate gain, regardless of the consequences down the road. Ethics are distorted or missing altogether. We swim in this polluted water, often unaware. The fruits of our decisions could well be overwhelming global environmental disaster and social collapse. It's time to wake up, speak up, and get to work. We need to reclaim our ethical core. The Paris Climate Summit is part of the growing awareness of the drastic action needed. One of the delegations to the summit, called It Takes Roots to Weather the Storm, part of the Indigenous Environmental Network, has this to say. Civil society, popular movements, indigenous movements, and society in general have the right to raise their voices in dissent, especially when our futures are being negotiated. The voices of indigenous peoples, youth, women, and frontline communities need to provide guidance in these negotiations, now more than ever. Climate justice seeks to address much more than greenhouse gas emissions, but the root systemic causes of climate change itself. Climate justice is about social, economic justice, and how democratic, peaceful, and equitable solutions, not military violence, best serve the interests of the community. The fossil fuel economy is a driver of this multifaceted crisis facing the world, causing resource wars, polluting our air, water, and land, creating illness and death to people and of ecosystems, privatization of nature, economically exploiting indigenous communities, communities of color, and the working poor, forcing mass migrations, and depriving millions of adequate food, access to water, housing, healthcare, and healthy and safe environment. The fate of the planet and of our grandchildren and of the seventh generation of the seventh generation is in our hands. Let us be inspired by the miracle of life, life on Earth, and by the humanity of our companions across the globe. Let us carry this poem, A Winter Blessing, by Reverend Dr. Rebecca Parker, in our hearts. In the shadowed quiet of winter's light, Earth speaks softly of her longing, because the wild places are in tears. Come, she cries to us, kneel down here on the frosty grass and feel the prayer buried in the ground. Bend your ear to my heart and listen hard. Love this world, she whispers. Distill peace from the snow and water the cities with mercy. Weave wonder from the forest and clothe grief with beauty. Rest in the rhythm of the turning year. Trace the bending arc rounding the curve towards justice. And vow anew to do no harm. The winter trees stand watch, hallowed in the last gleams of the setting sun. Glory sings here. Heaven echoes the call. Repeat the sounding joy. Make your life an answer. Bow. Praise. Rise. Thank you.
Thank you. Beautiful. So I'm standing here with Gary Beverly from the Sierra. What's your official title in the Sierra?
Chair of the Yavapai group of the Sierra Club.
The Yavapai group of the Sierra Club. And Alex, who represents, who's a Prescott College student. Do you represent an organization?
Yeah.
You have to speak
I think it's important that people to know what's going on out there, and it's important to educate people to make a better world and a better family and a better environment that we've been destroying so much. So it's important to educate so the next future generation can have a better and happier, healthy life. And so that's what I thought to share my speech, because it's time to start making action. So
yeah.
Unfortunately, with the low amount of battery power, I couldn't include your speech in there, but it was a wonderful speech.
Yeah.
So the point of the rally is to move people to action, because if we don't act on climate change strongly now, the consequences later on to the younger generation are going to be enormous. So I thought we had a very successful rally today. We had over 300 people were counted. I think that's a tremendous turnout in Prescott, Arizona.
Yep.
And I hope that people will write letters to their elected representatives, that they will adopt personally a green lifestyle, to have a personal, to lighten their personal carbon footprint on the planet. So this was one of 2,300 rallies that happened around the world today. Just today.
Wow.
In 190 separate countries. The word we had is that over 600,000 people have gathered worldwide today to ask their governments to take a more aggressive measures to combat climate change.
Are you saying
A small difference makes a big difference.
Yes.
A small act makes a big difference. That's right.
Yes.
Our plan, our objective was to get twice as many people out today as we got out last year. Last year we got out 100 people at 8 in the morning, and I think today we had over 200.
Gary says it was officially over 300.
Okay, well we met that goal. So going forward, we'll try and double it again the next time we have a rally, and we'll build on this one with some of the political actions that we want to get started, like getting the city to develop a climate change action plan.
Right.
So we're going to get to work on that right away.
It seems that both our state representatives, well, actually, I shouldn't say both, I was thinking senators, Gozar in particular is very anti-environment, and he represents the voting district that Prescott is in, so it seems like he seems to be an obstacle to overcome as well.
Yeah, he definitely is. He wants to repeal the Clean Power Plan, and And that is the Clean Power Plan is a very modest proposal. It doesn't go nearly far enough at all, and he wants to not even start doing anything. So he's a climate denier, and he's not doing anything good for the people in his district.
And then, do you have folks on the Board of Supervisors here in Prescott who are sympathetic to the initiative?
Well, I don't think so. However, it was Tom Thurman who helped us to use the square here today, so we can thank him for that. Thanks,
That was
Tom.
like a last-minute permit kind of thing?
No, it's been over the past couple of weeks, but he helped us.
Cool.
So thanks, Tom.
Yep. Alrighty, Dennis. Thanks so much.
Okay. Thanks.